98FM's Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy. Weekdays from 10 a.m. on 98FM.
It's 98FM's Dublin Talks. This is Adrian Kennedy with you until midday today. I'm joined on the line now in just a moment by a man called Ernie. And a couple of weeks back when I was on holidays, he told Jeremy about his autistic child and told the story about how his autistic child was not allowed to attend a school trip to Tato Park because of his unpredictable behaviour. Well, this morning Ernie is staging a protest outside his son's school, which is in Athlone in County Westmeath, and he joins me on the line. Ernie, welcome back to 98FM.
Hi, thanks for having me on again.
Now, I mentioned that I was on holidays when you were on with us a couple of weeks back. Remind us, and I am familiar with your story, but for people who may not have heard the conversation, remind us of what happened with your son.
What happened was, Adrian, I was given a letter the day before the annual school trip. This was all kept very hush-hush, so I had no chance to appeal or come to some sort of resolution. And Matthew wasn't welcome on the school trip due to his unpredictable behaviour. He missed the school trip that day, the next day.
Okay, so since then, since you were on, you've had no reasonable reply from the school, have you?
None whatsoever. I had a conversation, which was the first conversation I had with the principal was yesterday. And the only reason I was in yesterday is because he's, I think it's 3 weeks since the school trip, and he's been suspended yet again.
And what was he suspended for?
I'm gonna tell you that now. He was suspended, and the sports day was yesterday, the hottest day of the year, and he'd missed that as well. Matthew was suspended. He was out in the schoolyard playing football with his friends, and there was name calling going on. A child was calling Matthew names. Matthew asked the child, "Why are you calling me that?" And the child said, "Because you are that," and so on and so forth. And Matthew ended up hitting the child.
Right, okay.
Don't get me wrong, my sympathies are with the parents. I understand they may be upset, and I'd be exactly the same, but I just feel another suspension isn't going to help my son that he's at home now today for the final week of school.
And, okay, so your son has two different conditions, as I understand it. He has autism and then oppositional defiant disorder.
Well, ADHD and oppositional defiant disorder.
Okay. Now, tell me about how that affects him and how it affects his interaction with other students in school.
Well, it can be very hyperactive, unpredictable. He has, it can be aggressive behaviour. However, only when he's provoked or something happens. Do you know what I'm saying? Matthew, how can I put it? He can be very impulsive as well. Like sometimes he doesn't think before he acts, but it's out of his control at times. Do you know what I'm saying? Now his medication helps, but there's only so much that can do, and that's why we're working with him with various. We work with the various bodies to put in place different things to help him, like his behaviour, like you know.
Okay, now you're holding a protest outside the school today because this is his third suspension. He wasn't allowed on the school trip to Tato Park a couple of weeks back.
That's right.
What are you looking for from this school?
I'll tell you what I'm looking for. Firstly, I would like an apology off them because regarding the school trip, he had done nothing wrong to warrant the punishment. And I can tell you that right now. He harmed nobody and done nothing wrong. I want an apology for the school trip. That's what I want. Secondly, I would like the Board of Management to sit down with me, which is not too much to ask.
Okay, one of your banners today says, educate the Board of Management to educate our child. And then the other one says, we will not wait while you discriminate, educate, don't discriminate.
That's correct.
And this is your belief that your child with three different conditions is being blatantly discriminated against rather than the school trying to learn how to educate him properly?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's an easier life for the school if he's suspended. I mean, he's suspended on the spot, Adrian. There's no appeals or no meetings with us first. He's suspended on the spot. There's no alternative punishments. Detention's gone out of the window or anything like that. I'm even trying to find out what is the problem here. Why did you do what you've done? He's sorry every time he does. He apologised to the child he hit yesterday of his own free will, of his own back, and that's huge for Matthew. He realised what he'd done. He was sorry. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay, but do me a favour, Ernie. Stay there for 1 second if you can, please, because I have to take a very quick break. But I'd love to hear from you on this, on 6797 981, about the difficulties of educating children with severe autism or ADHD. Ernie, could it be a case that this particular school just isn't geared to educating a child with the issues that your son has?
You could argue that. However, the school actually has a dedicated autism unit in the school.
Okay, so you believe that they should be able to educate him properly and to deal with his issues?
I do indeed, and especially since he's been allocated a full-time SNA, which doesn't come easy to get. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, indeed, yes. And have you discussed these issues with the SNA?
I can't. I can only talk to the SNA so much. She only has so much input with me directly. I have to go through the principal a lot of the time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Her hands are tired, and it's understandable. She's only a worker. The principal has the last say. You know.
Okay, stay there for 1 second. How many people have you got at your protest there with you?
At the moment, I've 20 odd people. I had more people that are coming and going out throughout the day, but it's very hot out here, Adrian.
Indeed,
you can't
yes.
people hand out all day. You know.
And these are family and friends?
Family and friends, and I have representatives from ADHD Ireland who've come down from Dublin.
Okay, stay there for 1 second. 6797 981 is our telephone number. Let me go to Jay. Jay, you're on 98FM. How are you, Jay?
How's it going?
Now, Jay, I have to be honest with you. Until we spoke to Ernie, I had never heard of oppositional defiant disorder, which is something that your son has too.
He's autistic as well. His outbursts as well as that chap, he's the exact same. And we were pulled up by the school a few times, said, look, it's out of control. He has got an SNA. The SNA wouldn't be qualified enough for anyone with ODD, so there was a waiting list for it. We were referred to a place called CAM. There was a 6-month waiting list on it. So in the meantime, his school last week, and also his younger brother is autistic. The two of them couldn't go to the farm. Now, he wasn't allowed to go, but his younger brother was allowed to go. And I said, well, how was that? You're bringing the autistic kids to it. Because his outbursts are too violent. So we didn't let either of them go. So we couldn't have one going and coming back and telling him of just being at the farm. So they were off that day for the school. And
again, I had never, I'll be honest with you, I had never heard of ODD. I'd heard of ADHD and so on. Oppositional defiant disorder. I'd never heard of that until today. Now, tell me how that affects and how that impacts on your son.
He went to a meltdown and he's just no control over his language. And he lashed out. He's assaulted his SNA. She's actually been on assault leave, which I've never heard anything like it before. She was off for a week. He's assaulted the principal. But when this happens, he doesn't know he's out of doing it, and he's just so exhausted. He doesn't realise it. But our point was with the school, for him not going on the trip, if you were taking other autistic kids that may have ODD, hasn't been recognised yet, but they have got it. What's to say if they lash out? So he was just singled out of the whole school. And the reason why they told us he couldn't go was because the Friday before that, they had sports day, and he was so overwhelmed and excited, he couldn't participate in anything. So he went into meltdown mode. He was too excited. That's what happens to him. And because of that, then they rang us at 3:30 on the Friday to say that he wasn't going on the trip on the Monday.
So when the school weren't allowing him go on the trip, do you have any understanding about the difficulties that clearly is placed upon the teachers to bring a child like your child or like Ernie's child on a school trip, for example?
I had several meetings. I spoke with the principal and the SNA and another teacher, and they're telling us that they're not qualified. My son attends another place, Beach Park, and even Beach Park are not qualified to help any kids with ODD.
Okay, and do you understand that? That this is a huge difficulty?
Not really. It's down to the government. They said they haven't got the funding, and then they also told us that he might lose the SNA next September. The SNA that he has, he might lose it because the government are bringing in people now in the summer to train these teachers to deal with autistic kids.
Okay,
what we're getting told.
Stay there for 1 second. I want to go back to Ernie, who's protesting outside his son's school over the fact that he was suspended 3 times, over the fact that his son wasn't allowed to go on the school trip a couple of weeks back. Ernie, I'm going to put the same question to you that I just put to Jay. Do you have any understanding or appreciation of the school's position and their difficulty in taking your son on a school trip to Tato Park, bearing in mind his conditions? You there, Ernie?
Oh, sorry, this is Ken here from ADHD Ireland.
Oh, sorry, how are you, Ken? Sorry.
I'm very good. I'm actually down here with Ernie in Roscommon.
Okay, now, you're Ken Kilbride from Autism Ireland. Tell me why you're there at that protest today, Ken.
So I'm actually from ADHD Ireland, but we're here to support Ernie because, this is not an isolated instance. There's children all around Ireland, and Dublin as well, that are being excluded from normal activities. And, all we're asking for is simply reasonable accommodations to be made. And it's just not happening. Teachers go through their teacher training, and if they get, an hour's training to work with children with neurodiverse conditions, we're lucky. So there's a lack of education out there. There is a lack of sympathy. There's a lack of understanding. So we're just down here helping and supporting Ernie as best we can. Okay,
now the other gentleman I was talking to a moment ago outlined how his son's SNA, his son's special needs assistant, is on leave because his son assaulted the special needs assistant. Now, do you have any understanding as to the difficulties that creates for a school and for staff?
Of course we do. But all we're saying, and I'll go back to the point, is, all we're asking for is reasonable accommodations. And this is where the difficulty comes in. One of the biggest issues we find around ADHD is the issue of stigma. And there's a lack of understanding and a lack of knowledge. What we want to do is get through that, ADHD is a real condition. It's recognised in the what's called the DSM-5. There is the perception out there that it's the naughty child syndrome or it's bad parenting. It's none of those. It's an actual real condition caused by a lack of dopamine in the brain. So when the children have that, they don't have that focus, they don't have the ability to take the instructions. So we're saying, it's not a normal condition, but it is a condition that should be treated and managed. And when it's not, if the children have something like asthma, you give them the inhaler. If they've diabetes, you give them insulin. If they've ADHD, you need to put in reasonable accommodations to help the child. When those accommodations aren't put in, you get situations like we have today.
Okay, so you believe that schools need to be better able to educate children like Ernie's son, like Jay's son, instead of fobbing them off and saying, no, we can't deal with this?
Yeah, it is a policy of our organisation, and the organisation is going about 40 years now. ADHD is no excuse for bad behaviour. We will never say or accept that. ADHD is a condition, it's treated, but it's not an excuse for bad behaviour. So if there is bad behaviour, that needs to be sorted as well.
And how do you define the difference? I would have thought assaulting a special needs assistant would be classed as bad behaviour.
I certainly said it would. But the other situation then is, and I just can use an example of a child in the UK who went in front of the tribunal because he'd been excluded from school 39 times in 1 year. So what you find is, that if the child has been excluded probably more than 3 times, then exclusions don't work. So why keep doing them? And, we have this situation where we're down in Roscommon this morning where there's been multiple exclusions used by the school. And if it's not working as a theory, or as a way of helping the child, well, then you got to go find something else. And those accommodations need to be reasonable by the schools. That's all we're asking for.
Jay, you're facing a very similar situation to the situation that Ernie is facing down in Athlone there.
Yeah.
What you believe that schools also should be better able to deal with this?
I thought there should be something put in place. Like as you said, like it's not just one child here, one there. It's all over.
All right, stay there for 1 second. 6797 981 is our telephone number. You can text or WhatsApp the programme 0877 98 98 98. John, you're on Dublin's 98FM. How are you, John?
Good morning, Adrian. How are you doing?
Good morning, John. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Just listening to the story there, I don't disagree with the school not engaging with those people for the fact of legal purposes. Because if the school gives an apology, then there's a law case. There's a suing case going on. So I agree with the school saying no. If the child is violent, we're not going to, give you an apology because the next step you will take is the law court, and we will be sued as a school. So the school have to protect themselves. They have to protect their other students, and at the end of the day, if these children are very, very violent, and I sympathise with both men in both respects, the fact of the matter is the school has to protect the other students, and that's, under health and safety rules.
Okay, Jay, let's deal with that point, that the school, in situations like what happened with your child and like what happened with Ernie's child, has to protect other students.
I understand that, and the problem we had with the schools, we were saying our son would have meltdowns at home. We learned how to deal with that. And he hasn't had any meltdowns at home in, God knows, over 3 months. But yet when he goes to school, so obviously there's something triggering it. Now, we're not there when he's in school. If the SMA is there, surely she can see these things coming and she should know. Or surely they should be trained for this. Because at the end of the day, every child is entitled to education.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not fair when you're being told your child's going to be suspended. Like he's only gone 6 years of age, and then to be excluded from a day trip which they all had talked about, he was looking forward to it. Like my partner had to bring the 2 children off to somewhere else that day. Just because the whole school was going.
Okay, but John's point is that you have to understand, particularly with somebody, something like a school trip, the difficulties created.
I do understand that, and I think they need a lot more help. This is my point. That there should be something there for these children. Like there was the school, when my child was in an autistic unit, they pushed him into mainstream, told us he'd have an SNA full time. We didn't really want to put him into mainstream. We didn't think maybe he's not ready for it with the outbursts and all that. And they sort of persuaded us, yeah, we think he is, he's doing great. Now he's in a class with over 20 kids. He can't take the crowds and he was into meltdown. And now, so the best way to deal with it for them, okay, he's not going on the trip. We don't want him in school tomorrow. Even when we ring the school to say, look, we don't think he's up to it today, we're not sending him in. I actually think that the lawyer that he's not going in.
Mm. All right, stay there. Let me bring in some more calls on this. Our telephone number is 6797 981. Text or WhatsApp us 0877 98 98 98. Tracy, you're on 98FM. How are you, Tracy?
Hiya.
Tracy, you think in both these cases that the schools took the easy way out?
Yeah, I think most schools, it's the majority of the teachers, principals are not educated enough about special needs, and they should be. I wonder what happened to the guy that provoked the child to do that. And is it just because the child had special needs that he got excluded from the school?
Ernie, I don't know if you're in a position to answer that.
Yeah. Well, sorry, Kate again. But what I would say is, and I just throw a little bit of information in here, just in terms of facts. The prevalence rate for ADHD is about 5% of the population. So that means there's one child, that's 1 in 20. So there's one child in every classroom. But the thing that's very important here is that ADHD rarely travels alone. So 70% of children with ADHD will have what's called a coexisting condition. 44% will have 2. And 11% will have 3 other conditions. So when a child with ADHD is there in the classroom, you're actually looking at a range of things. So the other comorbid conditions are what called, dyslexia, dyspraxia, ODD, as you mentioned earlier, autism. So it's not a simple thing looking at the child. The child has ADHD. There's actually maybe 2 or 3 things going on. And that's just simply where the teachers don't have the experience and understanding to help and support those children.
Yes, and I think a lot of people agree with all of that, but other people, like that man John I was talking to a moment ago, have an appreciation of the difficulty that some schools are in. Some schools are well able to cope with children with the difficulties that your children have, but others aren't and aren't geared up. And I understand that is a problem for some schools compared to others. But what John is saying is that schools have to be mindful, especially on something like a school trip, of the health and safety of the other students.
Absolutely. Wouldn't disagree with any of that. But all we're saying,
is it just the case that he has special needs?
No, but maybe you'd put me back onto Ernie, Ken, if you wouldn't mind.
Sorry.
Because I'd like to find out specifically, Ernie, were you told specific?
Just have to go run down the road again, Ernie. Just 1 second.
Well, actually, I can put that same question to
Hello?
Ernie. Are you there? Yeah.
I'm here.
Ernie, were you specifically told why your child was not allowed to go on that school trip?
No, I wasn't specifically told, no.
And you still haven't gotten an answer?
No, just a letter that was given me that described his unpredictable behaviour. That was all I got.
And Jay, were you given a specific answer?
Yeah, we were told about the violent outburst, and I actually asked for it in writing. And we got it in writing, and then we got in contact with GT, and we got in contact with CAM, which is it's a crowd that actually deal with children with ODD, and he's on a waiting list now. Saying so. Now we already applied for that before, but we were refused it. But because now he's been diagnosed with ODD, and with the letter off the school saying he's had to be refused his trip and he's violent outbursts, he's assaulted this and that. Now they're willing to have a look at him now in the next 3 months.
My heart goes out to that man, I tell you. He's a long road ahead of him.
Yeah, and but it sounds like both of you have, to be quite honest with you.
And if he wants to feel free to contact me on Facebook, maybe we could help each other, you know.
That'd be very helpful.
Yeah.
And lads, my heart does go out to you, I have to say, and particularly, and I know a lot of our listeners were texting in to say they'd never heard of this condition, oppositional defiant disorder, and I assume it does what it says on the tin in terms of what it means and the effect that it has on a child.
It does, exactly. Exactly. He does the total opposite. And can I just say, Adrian, I made which I thought was a reasonable suggestion yesterday regarding the sports day, which is the hottest day of the year. I did say to them, listen, I said, will you let him come in for a sports day to make up for the school trip fiasco, I said. And in return, I said, if you think he should be punished for what he did in the yard, and I agree there has to be a consequence, Adrian. I said to him, why not allow him in the schoolyard after school with whoever else is there to help him clean up the schoolyard after the sports day? Let him take down the floats and load them back into where they should be and clean the schoolyard as a form of punishment. Which is not unreasonable. It certainly wouldn't have been unreasonable in my day.
Okay, but instead he was suspended.
Suspended until Friday, their last day of school. He's supposed to go in for 2 hours, which was very generous of them to let him in for 2 hours.
All right, but look, we'll keep in touch with you about your ongoing campaign, and I know,
and
I know we've touched on the raw nerve with many of our listeners trying to get their children with severe autistic kids who are quite severe on the autistic spectrum, getting them properly educated. Ernie,
Adrian, can I just say as well? I can't say why I'm there, but I have a couple of appointments in Dublin actually after here. I'm heading up to Dublin, and if I have time. If not today, but I will do in the next couple of days. I hopefully get there today. I will be making an appearance at Minister Bruton's office today.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks very much indeed for talking to us,
Thank
Ernie.
you.
And I wish you well. And Jay, I wish you well as well, because and maybe the two of you getting in touch with each other would help you both along.
Yeah, could you pass my number to him?
We will as soon as we're finished talking.
Okay, thanks.
All right, good to talk to you, Jay, and thanks very much indeed. Right. This is 98FM's Dublin Talks.
98FM's Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy. Weekdays from 10 a.m. on 98.